Great. Yeah, thanks very much. So, yeah, the last thing to discuss in the EIC for 2026 is the EIC Accelerator, which is perhaps one of the largest, or if not the largest, funding mechanism for startups in Europe. And actually, in 2026, there's quite a few changes versus previous years, so there's a lot to unpack in a short time. Yeah, about me, I'm in the UK. I have a technical background, but at Strata, I focus on public fundraising for clean tech and sustainability companies, and for companies working in the digital sectors, so quantum or AI or anything like that. Next slide, please. So, firstly, for anyone that's not already familiar with the EIC Accelerator, just a very quick overview. The EIC Accelerator funds high risk, high impact technical innovations that are built on some kind of scientific discovery or technical breakthrough. So it's really funding projects and products that are at the forefront of scientific thinking. And they have to, of course, as with any public funding, be demonstrating some kind of wider societal impact. That could be environmental or health or something completely different. For the EIC Accelerator, you have to be quite close to the market, and you should be disrupting that market or creating a new market. So an incremental, easy to implement solution is not necessarily the best application for the EIC Accelerator. They're looking for something that's radical and different, really disruptive. Here it says TRL6 plus, or I put TRL6 plus, 2 to 4 years from the market. The TRL requirement I'll come back to, but really you need to have finished TRL5 and be working at TRL6. And 2 to 4 years from the market is somewhat subjective, but for engineering products or something that is maybe more manufacturing based, 2 years from the market is kind of indicative for when you should be submitting your EIC Accelerator application. Of course, in health tech and certain other industries like quantum or very large engineering projects, that can often be longer. So this isn't a hard requirement, it's just a soft guideline. And most importantly, and perhaps more importantly in 2026 than 2025, you have to demonstrate that you require significant funding over a long time frame and that your project is very risky and investors can't contribute the full amount of what you need to reach the market. Next slide, please. So all of that is basically the same as it's always been for the EIC Accelerator. So now maybe just a quick overview of what it looks like in 2026, what the program looks like. The budget is actually the same, or roughly the same. The open call, and actually before I keep going, I should say this is all based on the unpublished draft that we've seen. And of course, that's subject to change, so take all of this with a grain of salt. But the open call in 2026 will be larger than in 2025. In 2025, it was 384 million. Next year, it will be 414. But that extra 30 million has been taken off of the challenge budget. So the challenges have been reduced from 250 down to 220 million. But the funding amount per applicant is the same. So you can receive a grant of 2.5 million or an equity investment of up to 10 million. If you need more equity investment, you should be looking at the scale up call. One key difference is the minimum equity investment has increased from 500,000 to 1 million euros. But actually that shouldn't affect most applicants because the reality is most applications for equity of less than 1 million euros were unlikely to be granted anyway. So no meaningful changes in the funding. In the challenges, so like the Pathfinder and the Transition, there are specific challenges that fall within that 220 million euro budget. They're quite, well, some of them are very broad. So Challenge 5, Deep Tech for Climate Adaptation, can include many, many different topics, and others are very specific, like alternative fusion power concepts. In 2026, unusually or differently from previous years, it's important you read the challenge text very carefully because some of them have specific rules. So for example, the alternative fusion power concepts, they will only be evaluated in the final 2 cutoffs of the year. So there's nothing to be gained by submitting a proposal to Challenge 2 in January or in March. And yeah, in the draft work program, and there's already very comprehensive descriptions of each of the challenges. I doubt they will change very much, but we obviously are waiting for the final published draft before the final published version before we draw too many conclusions. The application process in 2026 the same as 2025 with a few important differences. So there is a step 1 proposal which you can submit at any time. A step 2 application, which is a little bit larger, includes more information. There's 6 deadlines in 2026. And then step 3 will be an interview or a pitch session in Brussels, which is going to happen 3 times in 2026. The next slide, please. So to talk about the application process in a little bit more detail, and this is a comparison between 2025 and 2026. So the short application hasn't changed. It's still a 12-page proposal, a pitch deck, and a video. The evaluations will still take roughly 4 to 6 weeks. You can submit a short proposal at any time. They will be evaluated once per month. So there's no benefit, and it's on the first Tuesday of each month. They're batched and sent off for evaluation. So there's no sense in submitting on the first Wednesday of the month. In that case, you might as well wait till the next month. The full application, this is where the main differences are. So in 2025, the full application was a 50-page proposal with several annexes, a very long application, hundreds of hours went into each individual application. In 2026, it's a huge change, so it's dropping down to a 12-page document, and they specifically say you can reuse the short proposal, although I would say that looking at the evaluation criteria for the different phases, you shouldn't reuse the same proposal, but you can tweak it and reuse a lot of the content. And there's an increased number of annexes. So for example, the implementation plan that used to be part of the 50-page proposal has been pulled out. They're also asking for more financial data in an annex rather than in the proposal itself. So as of now, we haven't seen any official templates, but it sounds like most of the information will still be included in the application, but in a different format to in 2025. Another really important difference in the evaluation phase is a technical due diligence. So in 2025 and in previous years, it's always the applications have been evaluated by a panel of expert evaluators. In 2026, prior to that, somebody in the EIC or somebody assigned by the EIC will review the proposal purely from a technical point of view, and they will be a qualified expert in the technology, and they will produce a due diligence report, which is sent to the evaluation panel. So the evaluation panel has access to both your proposal and your documents and a detailed due diligence report from a technical expert. And that's new, and so we need to see how that's reflected in the application documents. And then, as with 2025, the final stage is a pitch in Brussels, and then the grant agreement negotiation. Next slide, please. So timing-wise, the short proposal, as I said, they're batched on the first Tuesday of every month at 10 o'clock European time, Brussels time. The full application, so in 2025, there were only 2 deadlines. In 2026, there's going to be six cutoffs. So every odd month on the first Wednesday of that month. So it's much more flexible in when you can apply. And the applications will be batched. So two cutoffs to 1 pitching session. There'll be 3 pitching sessions in 2026. The dates for those are still to be confirmed, but based on past years, we would expect them to be sometime probably early June, early October, and probably January 2027, give or take. And the evaluation times are there as well. They haven't sped up. Actually, the final results, that should be final results in 2 to 3 weeks, not 4 to 6 weeks. But again, all of this is based on unpublished drafts and subject to change. Next slide, please. So the evaluation criteria So this focuses on the full application evaluation criteria. The short application criteria are loosely the same. It's just kind of a watered down version. There's a few points removed. I'm not going into full detail here. I'm just talking about the main differences from 2025. So again, it's broken down into excellence, impact, and implementation. In excellence, the really big difference is adding this technical due diligence validation. But they've also they've changed the wording of the TRL requirement. So in 2025, it said you must be at TRL 6, i.e. finished TRL 5. In 2026, they're just saying you have to have finished TRL 5. I think that's just to make it clearer for evaluators, so we get fewer problems with evaluators misunderstanding TRLs or with applicants misunderstanding. But I think that's a good improvement. There also seems to be slightly softer IP requirements. They're not specifically or explicitly asking for an FTO now. They just say if available, has an FTO been conducted. I think that's related to the increase in applications in the digital sector, where running an FTO doesn't always make sense. So it keeps that more open, and as a whole, there's an IP annex rather than an FTO. In impact, strangely, there's quite a heavy focus on the business plan and financial modeling, even though there doesn't seem to be space to include that in the proposal within 12 pages. So we'll see how that's implemented. And yeah, they're focusing, or they're more specific about the broader impact goals as well. And finally, in implementation, there's a couple of small differences. For example, they want to see more information or specific information on the team incentives. And also something that's a little bit different is the very specific requirements for investor support. So that's more direct, what they're looking for. Yeah, next slide, please. So the evaluations, so we're in 2025, it was simply a go, no-go decision for each of the 3 stages. In 2026, that's changing. So step 1, the short application will still be a no-go, no-go decision. But in the full proposal stage, they're reverting to a ranking system that's typical for most Horizon Europe bids. So for that, each of the 3 criteria are scored out of 5 by the panel. It specifically says that scored by the panel, not by the expert, the technical expert, but presumably the report from the technical expert will be considered in that score. And then the proposals are ranked. So for each of the 3 pitch sessions in Brussels, they rank the proposals from the 2 preceding cutoffs, and they invite to Brussels the number of applications that represents 2.5 times the total budget allowance for that interview session. So that means that if you're invited to the interview, your chance of success at that point is about 40%, which would be actually higher than in this year. So that's all I wanted to say. I think it's a lot of information in quite a short space of time. So obviously, if you want to ask questions or if you're thinking about an application, then get in touch. Yeah, in general, it sounds like the EIC Accelerator has changed quite a lot, but they're still assessing and evaluating the same content. So it's really going to be about how you present that. And we have already seen success rates of step 1 go down, and I expect that it's going to become more selective in step 1 and less selective as you get through the process. That's it from me.